Don't waste it on yourself. Think of your brother. That was my mom's reaction the day I told her I finally got approved for a small business loan. Not a congrats, not a you did it, not even a half-hearted good luck. Just that, she said. It like I was buying a jet ski with my inheritance. Like using a loan for myself was some kind of betrayal. The thing is, I'd worked my entire adult life being the afterthought in my own family. My brother, Kyle, was the golden child. The golden grown-ass man, technically. A full-time dreamer and part-time YouTuber who never moved out, never worked more than 6 hours a week, and had somehow convinced my parents that he was a misunderstood genius. Meanwhile, I was the one who paid rent since I was 18. The one who took the city bus in the rain because car repairs cost too much. The one who fixed my uncle's busted HVAC unit for free, twice. No thank you. Just a text saying, hey, it's still leaking. So when the bank finally approved my $48,000 loan to start a mobile appliance repair service, I felt like I could breathe. For the first time in years, I had a plan. I had a spreadsheet. I had a budget that actually made sense. Why mom had a different vision. Kyle's music equipment is falling apart, she said over her meatloaf that night. If he had just a fraction of your determination, he'd go viral in a month. I looked across the table at Kyle, who was shoveling mashed potatoes with the enthusiasm of a toddler at Golden Corral. He live streams himself talking about NFTs while playing Minecraft. I replied, I'm not sure more microphones will fix that. My dad jumped in then, Mr. Conflict Avoidance himself. Let's not argue. It's just, family supports family. Right. Family supports family. As long as that family member is Kyle. They always saw him as the fragile one, the artist, the one who needed protection. I was the reliable one, the you'll manage somehow son. The one who didn't need anything. Because I never asked. I smiled. Nodded. Said, thanks for the advice. And the next morning, I moved forward with my business without telling them a thing. The van was a used Ford Transit, bright white and slightly lopsided on the driver's side. My best friend Joe helped me stencil my business name on the side. Nate fixes it. Not fancy, but clean, direct, memorable. Within weeks, I was booking 2 to 3 appointments a day. Old refrigerators, busted dryers, dishwashers that sounded like chainsaws. And because I charged fair prices and actually showed up on time, I started building a client base faster than I expected. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't broke either. I didn't have to choose between gas and groceries anymore. That was new. I posted nothing about it online. No bragging, no flashy updates. I wanted to build in peace. Besides, my parents never asked how it was going. They figured if I wasn't crashing and burning, I must be fine. 2 months in, I got a call from an older couple looking to rent out their triplex. Their last tenants left it in a disaster. Mold, broken appliances, water damage from a leaking fridge. I fixed every unit, brought them up to code, even helped with inspections. And in the process, I got to talking with the owners. They were in their 70s, tired of managing property, and just wanted peace. I made them an offer. I used my loan to take over the property. Bought the triplex outright with a payment plan, did every repair myself, and became a first-time landlord within 90 days of opening my business. No one in my family knew. Not until they called me in a panic. It started with a voicemail from my mom. I hadn't spoken to her in over a month. Hey, sweetie. It's mom. A weird thing happened. Your brother's apartment building just got bought out by some company or whatever. The new landlord doubled the rent and isn't renewing his lease. Can you believe that? I mean, who even does that in this economy? I didn't call back. The next morning, another voicemail. Hi, Nate. Your father said I should talk to you. Kyle's really upset. We're trying to find him a new place, but it's just ugh. These rental prices are criminal. I swear, if we could just catch a break. Still didn't call back. By the time voicemail number 4 rolled in, she dropped the pretense. Are you ignoring us? Because Kyle's situation is really serious. He needs support right now. From all of us. Right. All of us. Meaning, me. Here's the kicker. I hadn't even raised the rent. Not for his unit. But when I bought the building, the old owner had already given notice to all tenants that they'd need to reapply under the new management. Standard stuff. Kyle, of course, missed the deadline. Twice. Then sent in an application. With crayon marks on it. I'm not even joking. And a picture of a cat in a beanie stapled to the back. For vibes, he wrote in the notes that SO technically, he disqualified himself. Now, my inbox had 3 new emails from Mom, urgent, a message from my dad that just said, "We need to talk," and Kyle's contribution, a tweet, getting evicted by some money-hungry boomer with a god complex. Love that for me. Boomer. I'm 27 that I finally texted back. Did Kyle not submit a proper application? She replied instantly. Why does that matter? It's Kyle, your brother. It matters because I'm the new landlord. Silence. 5 minutes. 10:30. Then my dad called. I answered. Silence again, but louder. You bought the building? He finally asked, voice thin like he'd aged 20 years in the last sentence. Yep. But why didn't you say anything? You never asked what I was doing, I said. Figured you weren't interested. He sighed. Well, is there anything you can do? I mean, it's Kyle. I wanted to laugh. I really did. But I just said, he can reapply. Like everyone else. You're really gonna make him go through that? Dad. He stapled a cat picture to his last one. A week later, Kyle showed up at one of my rental offices. Didn't call. Didn't schedule. Just strolled in wearing pajama pants and a shirt that said, I paused my game to be here. He didn't say hi. Didn't shake my hand. Just dropped into a chair across from me like he owned the place. Dude. What the hell? Hey Kyle, I said calmly. To what do I owe the pleasure? I've been living there for 5 years, he snapped. I don't see why I have to reapply just because some random loser bought the place. Technically, I said, you just called your landlord a loser. He stared at me. Wait, it's you. I smiled that he looked like someone had pulled the HDMI cable out of his brain. You? You own the building? Since when? Since the day I stopped wasting my life thinking about you. He left muttering something about lawyers and discrimination and not over yet. I didn't argue. Just offered him a lollipop from the bowl on my desk. He didn't take it. Shame. It was watermelon. I thought that was the end of it. But with Kyle, drama is his full-time job. Everything else is just side hustle. 2 days after our office encounter, my mom called while I was elbow deep in a broken dishwasher in Unit 2C. I ignored it. She called again, then again. By the 4th time, I picked up, mostly because I was worried someone had died. Sadly, no such luck. Let me guess, I said, balancing my phone on my shoulder while prying a chunk of soggy lasagna out of the filter tray. Kyle told you I evicted him for sport. Her voice cracked like she was holding back tears, or holding back a script she'd written and rehearsed twice in the mirror. Nate, be reasonable. Reasonable is asking your 27-year-old son to submit a real rental application. He's artistic, she said, like that explained everything. You know how forms and deadlines stress him out. So do unpaid invoices and water leaks, I snapped. But I still deal with them. She huffed. You always twist things around. You know Kyle's sensitive. Kyle has been sensitive since middle school gym class. At some point, it stops being a quirk and starts being a pattern. Nate, I cut her off. I didn't want another 45-minute call that ended with her sighing like I'd just broken up the family by daring to enforce basic adult responsibilities. Look, I said calmly. He didn't fill out the form. He didn't respond to follow-ups. He sent in a picture of a cat in a beanie and said, for vibes. What am I supposed to do with that? Silence. Then she said, real low. I just thought you'd care more. About family. That one hit me harder than I expected, because I did care. I just wasn't willing to set myself on fire every time Kyle needed warmth. I do care, I said. But I'm tired of being the only one who has to prove it. Then I hung up. The next day, a 1-star Google review appeared on my business page. Username, guitar_review. Owner has serious control issues. Very judgy. Doesn't believe in second chances or art. Be warned if you don't wear a tie to breakfast. I almost choked on my coffee. A few hours later, another one popped up. Username, Mom of Stars 2 review. Sad to see a good boy turn cold. Maybe money isn't everything after all. That one was funny. The guilt trip wrapped in inspirational quote energy. Classic. I screenshotted them and sent them to Joe, my ride or die since high school. Guess I'm finally famous. Haters made it official. He replied with a gif of a raccoon sipping wine in a hot tub. They always come for the throne, my king. I thought we'd hit peak absurdity. But then came the envelope. Certified mail. Legal letterhead. Request for immediate rental reconsideration, signed by a lawyer named Braden. Because, of course, apparently, Kyle's eviction, which, to be clear, wasn't even an eviction, had caused emotional distress and irreparable damage to his creative flow. They wanted me to approve his tenancy immediately or face small claims court for career disruption and mental anguish. I didn't yell. I didn't even blink that I just printed it out, walked to the triplex, and knocked on doors like a damn mailman with a vendetta. When Mr. Lutz in Unit A opened up, I grinned and handed him a sheet. Hey, just a heads up, I'm installing security cams next week and repainting the front steps. Also, one unit just became available. Send anyone my way, just maybe screen for crayon use. He gave me a thumbs up and offered me banana bread. When I got back to the office, I called the lawyer. Braden? I asked. Yes, he sounded 14 and terrified. Nate here. The landlord. And also, the brother. Long pause. Oh, I didn't realize. No worries, I said. Just letting you know the application's still open. I believe in redemption arcs. Even for guys who tweet through eviction. He tried to stammer something about amicable resolution and common ground, but I was already sipping coffee and dragging his letter to my recycling bin. Some people fight fire with fire, dummy. I fight pettiness with property management. The next week, I didn't hear a word from Kyle.no texts. No tweets. No guilt-ridden calls from my mom. Just total, eerie silence, which, if you know Kyle, is basically a red flag waving itself. Still, I kept my head down. My business was growing faster than I could keep up. My schedule was booked solid, my back hurt in places I didn't know existed, and I was eating way too many drive-through chicken wraps. But I didn't complain. For once in my life, everything I had was mine. Not loaned, not borrowed, not gifted. Built, earned, scratched out with scraped knuckles and secondhand tools. And yet, late at night, after the jobs were done and I was alone in my rental office counting invoices, the silence got loud. Loud with questions. Was I being too cold? Was I letting bitterness turn me into someone I never wanted to be? What if, deep down, Kyle really couldn't help being the way he was? I hated that those thoughts came from the same voice that used to tell me to suck it up whenever I got left behind that I didn't talk to Joe about it. He'd tell me I was doing great, and I knew he meant well, but this wasn't about being right. It was about finally standing my ground and realizing how hard that actually is. And then the guilt campaign began. I didn't get a phone call or a text. No, my mom went full 2009 Facebook mode. She posted a photo of Kyle sitting on a curb, hoodie over his head, dramatic lighting, and everything. The caption, "When family forgets what love means, we remember what it doesn't. We love you, Kyle. Always." I stared at it, blinking. There were no names, but everyone knew. The comment section turned into a casserole of passive-aggressive sympathy. Aunt Trish, no one deserves this broken heart. Cousin Danny, he's so talented. Breaks my heart. Random church lady. Prayers for justice. Folded hands. Kyle himself chimed in too. Thanks, everyone. Some people only see dollar signs. But I still believe in dreams. I didn't reply. I didn't post a rebuttal. I didn't DM anyone to clear the air, but I did do one thing. That I quietly updated my tenant portal software to block IP addresses from my parents' zip code. And Kyle's that it wasn't rage. It was clarity, because that post told me everything I needed to know. They weren't sad I'd changed. They were mad I stopped playing my role. A few days later, I got an application for the last available unit. In the triplex, it was from a young couple. Sarah and Miguel ran their own cleaning business, needed a place closer to their downtown contracts. They dressed neat, spoke respectfully, had their paperwork ready before I even asked, and when they handed me a batch of homemade brownies at the walkthrough, I nearly choked. Is this a bribe? I joked. Sarah laughed. No, it's a thank you for actually calling us back. Do you know how rare that is with landlords these days? And just like that, they became my new tenants. They signed a lease within 24 hours. No drama, no lawyers, no cat memes stapled to applications. Just good people trying to build something. As I handed them their keys, something shifted. Not a movie moment, not fireworks, but a slow, steady click. Like a loose screw finally tightening. That night, I drove past my parents' house on my way home. Didn't stop. Porch light was on. Kyle's car in the driveway. Same dent in the bumper. Same faded future millionaire sticker peeling at the corners. For years, That house had made me feel like an unwanted guest in my own story. Now, it felt like the past. Like a page already turned. And for the first time in my life, that didn't scare me at all. 3 weeks later, my phone buzzed mid-repair with a message from my dad. We need to talk. Face to face. No hi. No how are you? Just the kind of message that makes your stomach twist and your eyebrows rise. I stared at it for a moment, then texted back. Office. 6 p.m. Don't bring Kyle. No emoji. No looking forward to it. Just clean, professional coldness. At 6:03 p.m. sharp, he walked into my office like he owned the place. Khakis. Polo shirt tucked in military style. Same stiff posture from when he used to coach my little league games while Kyle braided friendship bracelets under the bleachers that he didn't sit. This has gone too far, he said, like he'd been rehearsing it in the car. I tilted my head. Hi, Dad. Good to see you too. He ignored it. Kyle's in a bad place. You've made your point. It's time to move on. Oh, I moved on, I said, leaning back in my chair. You're the ones who parked in my driveway like nothing happened. He didn't like that. This family's falling apart. I raised an eyebrow. It had cracks long before I got a title deed. He sighed and finally sat down, arms crossed, eyes avoiding mine. Look, I'm not here to argue. Your mother's worried. She thinks you've changed. I have changed, I said. I stopped making excuses for everyone else's mistakes. She just wants you back at the house. For dinner. Nothing dramatic. She already made it. Dramatic, I said. You don't post cryptic emotional guilt bombs on Facebook unless you're aiming for applause. He didn't deny it. Just shifted in his seat like my words were nails poking through the cushion. I let the silence stretch. Finally, he said, you've done well. I'll give you that. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was the closest thing to a compliment I'd ever gotten from him. I didn't do it for a pat on the head. Still, maybe tone things down. Family's family, Nathan. That one really got me. You know, that phrase, family is family, it always comes up when you want something. Never when I need something. He didn't say a word. I stood up, walked over to the filing cabinet, pulled out a folder I'd been keeping for weeks, a compilation of maintenance bills, contractor quotes, all related to the property. I handed it to him. Family's family, right? Then here's the invoice for the repairs Kyle ignored while living rent-free. He blinked at the stack of papers. What's this? Proof. Since everyone's calling me heartless, I figured I'd at least show the math. He stared at it, then reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. What's this? I asked, something your mother insisted on. Inside was a check, made out to me. Amount, $3,000. Memo. Peace offering/repairs. I almost choked. They tried to buy their way out with a check smaller than Kyle's phone bill. I didn't yell. I didn't throw it. I just smiled. You think this fixes it? I asked. It's a start. No, Dad. A start would have been showing up when I graduated trade school instead of saying, call us when you're done with that hobby. A start would have been helping me when my van broke down instead of posting Kyle's band promo for the 5th time that week. He looked older suddenly. Smaller. You don't have to cash it, he said. I folded the check in half and stuck it under a magnet on my mini fridge. I won't, I said. But I'll keep it. Frame it, maybe. Nice little reminder of what I'm worth to you. He didn't reply, just nodded once and walked out without another word. The next morning, I mailed the check back in O envelope. No explanation. Just the check, with a note written across the front in bold black Sharpie. This doesn't even cover Kyle's unpaid rent. For a while, it went quiet. No texts. No Facebook pity parades. No calls from my parents explaining how Kyle was the human equivalent of a rescue puppy, and I was heartless for not adopting him. I figured they were regrouping. I focused on my work. Business was growing faster than I could believe. Joe and I launched a referral program, upgraded our tools, and even started looking at a second property. The calendar was booked 2 months out. My savings had commas in the right places. And I could finally afford the good coffee, the kind that didn't taste like drywall. But some nights, I'd sit alone in the office after hours, scrolling through old photos. Me and Kyle as kids. Backyard forts. Nerf battles. One blurry pic of us in Halloween costumes. Me as a robot. Him as a magician with a paper hat and a wand made from a chopstick. It messed with me. Because the kid I remembered wasn't cruel. He was just indulged. Until that indulgence calcified into entitlement. The silence broke one Friday morning. I was on a ladder fixing a porch light when my phone started vibrating in my pocket. 3 times in a row. Kyle. Mom. Unknown number. I climbed down, heart thumping, and checked the voicemail. It was Kyle's voice, shaky, uneven, like he was halfway between embarrassed and panicked. Hey, Nate. Look, I know you're probably still mad, but I'm in trouble, man. Serious trouble. I need a place to stay, just for a few nights. I promise I won't touch anything. I'll sleep on the floor. Please just call me back. I stared at the phone, let the silence settle. Then I deleted the voicemail, not out of hate, out of knowing, because I'd been there before. Every few nights turned into a few weeks. Then came the guitars, the diffuser, the pop-up podcast studio. Then he'd start leaving dishes in the sink and talking about his creative process at 3 a.m. while I was trying to sleep between plumbing jobs. Letting him in meant letting go of everything I'd built. An hour later, my mom called. She left. A voicemail too. Hers sounded angrier, the kind of tight, sharp voice that meant she was clutching a mug and pacing. Nathan, it's your mother. I don't know what kind of man you think you're becoming, but this isn't you. Kyle is family. We help family. You used to understand that. I stared at my phone like it had personally insulted me. They always said I changed, but it wasn't that I changed. It's that I stopped being the family sponge. The one who absorbed every mistake, every expectation, every guilt trip, and squeezed out kindness anyway. That night, I reopened my tenant system, searched Kyle's old file. It was still there, archived, untouched. Under reason for non-renewal, I added a new note. Attempted re-entry via emotional blackmail. Denied. Then I turned off my notifications, microwaved some leftover lasagna, and watched a movie with Joe like nothing happened. The following Monday, I rented out the unit Kyle had asked for. Not to a moody songwriter or a wandering poet, but to Donnie, a retired mechanic who'd worked 40 years in a shop, saved every dime, and still managed to call me sir, even though he was twice my age. Donnie paid 6 months' rent up front. Brought me a thermos of homemade soup on move-in day. Fixed the building's bike rack on his second afternoon because it was loose and it bothered him. I shook his hand, locked up the paperwork, and realized I wasn't just building a business. I was building a community. One solid person at a time. A week later, a box showed up at my office, no return label. Just my name, written in shaky handwriting that immediately gave it away. Inside, a watercolor painting of the triplex, sloppy, but decent. The lines were wonky, the perspective off, but the colors were warm. It looked like someone had actually tried. There was a note tucked inside. Sorry for everything. I mean it this time. K. No phone number. No ask. No begging. Just a painting. I stood there for a long time. Not crying. Not angry. Just still. And then I hung it in the hallway, right by the front door. Not as forgiveness, but as a reminder that I could be kind without being weak. That I could remember where I came from, without going back there. And that sometimes the hardest thing isn't cutting people off. It's learning when not to let them back in. About a month after that watercolor showed up, I was in the middle of fixing a garbage disposal when my phone rang. Unknown number. I wiped my hands on a rag, half expecting it to be a tenant asking where to throw out batteries or how to turn the heat up. Hello? Hi. Is this Mr. Nathan Brewer? Speaking. This is Melissa with Cedar Grove Realty. We're reaching out regarding a situation involving the property at 119 Willow Street. You were listed as a point of contact on a tenant reference form. 119 Willow.my parents' house. I swallowed. I haven't lived there in over a decade. Oh, she said, stumbling. I apologize. It's just, well, that property has been flagged for pre-foreclosure and your name popped up. We thought maybe you were assisting with I'm not. I said, cutting her off. You'll need to talk to the owners. I understand. We'll update our files. Sorry to bother you. She hung up, and I just stood there, holding my phone like it was made of ice. Pre-foreclosure? That house had been in our family since before I was born. I used to ride my bike in figure eights in that driveway. I carved my initials into the wood of the back fence. It wasn't just a house. It was history. A history that apparently was hanging by a thread. I didn't call anyone. Didn't ask for the story. I already knew it. They trusted Kyle. Of course they did. They probably gave him power of attorney with nothing but a handshake and a "we believe in you" speech. Told him to handle refinancing like it was a grocery run. And he probably forgot. got distracted, or convinced himself he had better plans. That night, my phone exploded. Mom, 4 missed calls. Kyle, 3 missed calls. Dad, 1 voicemail. I didn't answer. Let them pile up. Then, finally, Mom left a voicemail. Her voice was tight, like she was trying not to cry, but also still low-key blaming me. Nathan, we need your help. The bank says we're out of time. Kyle, he was supposed to handle the paperwork, but he missed the window. I don't know what to do. We could lose the house. Please, please call us back. I played it twice, once for the words, once to catch the part where she still didn't say, I'm sorry. Joe was the only person I told that we were locking up for. The night when I said, they're losing the house. He froze, hand on the light switch. Seriously? Foreclosure. 3 weeks until auction. You gonna help? I shrugged. I don't know. You want to? I didn't answer. Just stared at the dusty corner of the office, at the spot where my toolbox used to live when I first started and couldn't afford a second shelf that he leaned against the wall. You know, I used to think revenge looked like yelling, throwing stuff, getting even. But sometimes it just looks like not rescuing people anymore. I chuckled. You trying to make a bumper sticker? He smirked. Maybe. That night, I didn't sleep that I kept thinking about all the little moments. The Thanksgiving when Dad raised his glass to my real kids. The birthday dinner they skipped because Cal had an open mic the time I fixed the water heater in February and they didn't even offer me coffee. All those moments added up like bricks, and suddenly I could see the house clearly, not the wood and walls, but the weight of it, the weight they put on me. The next morning, I pulled up the county auction schedule. 119 Willow Street. Set for auction in 20 days. Starting bid. $62,000. And just like that, I made a decision, not out of revenge, out of clarity, out of knowing that sometimes closure doesn't come with hugs or explanations. Sometimes it comes with a clipboard and a title deed. The county auction was held in a cramped government building that smelled like burnt coffee and bureaucracy. That I showed up in jeans and a hoodie, low profile. No reason to let anyone know I was there for something personal. The guy running the auction had the energy of a bored substitute teacher. He mumbled through the listings like he was reading a grocery list, only pausing when someone raised a hand. To bid. I sat near the back, arms crossed, waiting. When they finally called out 119 Willow Street, I straightened up. It was surreal. Hearing that address, the one I'd memorized as a kid, scribbled on school forms, whispered into late night. Pizza orders, now read out loud like a footnote in someone else's tragedy. The starting bid was low. Cheaper than most of the other listings. At first, no one raised a hand. Then a guy in a gray blazer did. Another man in a windbreaker followed. I waited, let them go back and forth a bit. 5,000 here, 2,000 there. Then I raised my hand. Once, no hesitation. The room went quiet. After a few more bids, it came down to me and the guy in the blazer. He squinted at me like I'd just wandered in by accident. I didn't blink. Eventually, he stopped. The auctioneer gave the final call. Sold. Just like that, I own 119 Willow Street, the house I was kicked out of, the house I fixed every summer for free, the house where I was always second place. Now mind that I didn't say anything to anyone for 3 days. Let the paperwork settle. Let the silence marinate. Then I scheduled the visit. I didn't show up angry. I didn't bring Joe. I didn't even dress fancy, just a clipboard, a folded copy of the deed, and a manila envelope with one last thing inside. They didn't recognize the knock at first, but when the door opened and my dad saw me standing there, his whole body stiffened. Nathan. Hey, I said. We need to talk. My mom peeked around the corner, eyes wide. Kyle was there too, barefoot, holding a bag of chips like he'd been mid-sulk. Is this about the house? Dad asked. I nodded. In a way. They let me in, slowly, cautiously. We sat in the living room. Same beige couch. Same ceramic rooster by the fireplace. Same sense that I didn't belong. Except now, I did. I handed my dad the envelope. He opened it. Read the contents. Paled. This can't be right. My mom leaned over, scanned it, and gasped. You bought it? I nodded. At auction. Legally. Fair and square. But she started, but her voice cracked. We thought. We had more time. I know, I said calmly. But Kyle didn't file the refinance. And the bank did what banks do. Kyle looked like he was going to melt into the couch. I was going to fix it, he mumbled. I'm sure you were. I said, but now it's done. They all stared at me, waiting for the punchline. So what happens now? Dad asked, barely audible. I smiled and pulled out the last paper from my clipboard, a printed lease agreement. Well, good news. I'm a fair landlord. Rent's market rate. First payment due in 10 days. You're welcome to stay, under one condition. They all looked up, stunned. Kyle doesn't live here rent-free anymore. He pays like everyone else. Or he leaves. My mom's jaw dropped. You're kicking out your own brother? No, I said. I'm giving him a choice. For once. They didn't know what to say to so I stood, walked to the door, and just before I left, I turned and added, oh, and about that loan I got? You said not to waste it on myself. So I didn't. I invested. Then I smiled. And this house, that was just the beginning.